Welcome to Hot Topics. In this video, we're going to cover the requirements when you're feeding a panel board through a circuit breaker in accordance with Article 690. Now, before we get started, if you don't mind, I would like to remind you to hit that subscribe button if you really like our videos, and tell your friends about these videos. You know, you can go through the code just by reviewing all of the articles, 90 right on through, well, up to chapter 8. So if you don't mind, tell your friends about our videos if you have time and don't mind doing that. Now, with that thought in mind, we're going to get into the video. Now, notice in this figure 1 here, PV systems can be mounted on a pole, as you see here. And of course, they can have a tracking system that they'll track the sunrise, solar noon, and evening sun, and get the maximum benefit out of your PV system. So this is one installation that could be made. Now let's look at figure 2 now. And notice you see the PV system is mounted on the ground. You can even have a storage battery backup in accordance with Article 480. I would like to point out to you that some of our visuals you're looking at come from the 2017 NEC as well as the 2020 NEC. So if a section doesn't match up and page number match up, well, just go to the 2017 or the 2020 and you'll be okay with that. And I would like to point out to you that the OSHA, 70B, 70E, and UL, those standards are okay. You would still find your information there. And then, of course, only qualified people should work on these PV systems that know what they're doing. Now, you can go through the illustrations and you'll have first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and so forth call-outs that will help you understand a little bit more about these PV systems. You can go on line, or I shouldn't say line, but YouTube, and you can get our PV systems and go through them and pick up a lot of good information there if you care to do so, if you install these systems. Now, if you will, let's just move over to our next video. And notice that we could install these PV systems on the roof of a home, little commercial building, or whatever. And once again, we have important call-outs that will help you with this type of installation. But notice the PV system will go through the, the connection junction box, go down to the disconnect, go through the converter, have a battery charger in case you're not getting the charge from the PV system that you need. And then it's routed over to the service equipment that you see in this illustration. Service equipment 230.70. And then notice we'll connect it into a breaker with this presentation. And you'll either be feeding through this breaker the bus just a certain amount of energy that the PV system will produce, or you'll feed the entire building and feed into a CB that when you turn it off and on, you disconnect the power to the utility so that you're not backfeeding into the utility, which could be very dangerous to a lineman. Now, let's look at the next illustration, which will be 4. Now, notice you see that we have a pole-mounted type PV system, a ground-mounted PV system, or a roof-mounted. Now, we're routing, see, from the converter from DC to AC, and we're bringing this AC voltage in. Now, if we feed the breaker, as you see in this 690.10E, but it'd be 690.10 in the 2020. And then notice the fasteners, what's important as you see in the illustration. 408.36D is in dog, or we look at the rules in 705.12d and E. But notice if it's at the top, as you see here, when you disconnect it, then you're powering this panel board with utility power. But when you turn it on, you disconnect the utility, so the input voltage you see is feeding the entire bus. And usually under this condition, you're feeding the entire facility, would it be a dwelling unit, little commercial building, or whatever. But now, you don't need the fastener. You don't have to have a fastener to fasten it in permanently as you do in 408.36d. But remember, you're coming over to 705.12d and E because you're connecting in with the utility. Now, if you come down and say bring that breaker down to the bottom, for example, you need the fastener in 408.36d as indalled, because you don't want someone not to realize that breaker is being fed from a PV system and you disconnect it and you're standing there holding an energized system, which, you know, you get shocked severely or fatally, you know, bad things could happen. So we would feed it at the bottom, but we wouldn't feed the entire panel board's power usage that the user of the panel board could get. You're only feeding a portion of it in. And if you make the deal with the utility, if you do not use all that you produce from a PV system, you can sell it back to the utility, but this is an arrangement that you need to make with the utility. And in course, you need to look at 90.4 and get with the authority having jurisdiction and determine if you're feeding just a portion of the power into the panel board to help, you know, provide more power, or are you actually feeding it to feed the entire facility if you should lose power from the utility. Now, this is something that questions we've had, and there's been a number of them, so I thought it'd be good to go over. And they wanted to know, when do I have to fasten that circuit breaker and when do I do not? You do not have to fasten it in permanently in 705.12d and E, but you do have to fasten it in permanently in 408.36d. Now there you have it. That's the difference in the fastener and when you have to have it and when you do not. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. My name is James Gray Stallcup, and I thank you very much for watching.